It's just not
All right. So what are we solving for? I didn't hear you, sorry. R. So what are we going to do first to get R along? 5.
by 8.
You can divide by H or pi or pi H. Do both. Save yourself some time. This is all multiplication. So let's divide both sides by pi H. So you can do it in 2 steps or you can do it in 1 step. Pi divided by pi is 1. H divided by H is 1. So we're left with R squared on the right. And on the left we have V divided by pi H. I'm going to take that to the board because you're not going to be able to see it. V divided by pi H equals R squared. We don't want to solve for R squared, we want to solve for R. So what do? Take the square root, very good. So take the square root of both sides. What's the square root of R squared? R. Now this says we only want the positive value. Technically, it's plus and minus. Because what's a negative times a negative? Great. And what's a positive times a positive? But this question is only asking for the positive value, so I don't need the minus. Square root V divided by pi H is your answer. Who has it? Those would be the... Okay. Help refresh my memory. Anytime you're told to factor, GCF. First, always, don't skip that step. What's the second step? Dots. Which means you can only have how many terms? 2. What's the sign between the terms? Third step. Trinomial. How many types of trinomials are there? 2. One is, and the other is? Okay, the easy has a lead coefficient of what? 1. Great. And what method do we use? The big X if you need to. The harder has a lead coefficient of, okay, more than 1, so what do? Good. Slide, divide, undo. Well, there's a 4th step of factoring. And that's called factor by grouping. And I'm going to probably spend the rest of today and Monday on that. We're going to factor by grouping. Please. So we're going to attempt this factor by grouping. Anytime you see 4 terms, you must factor by grouping. That's the only way to do it. You don't have to go through your other steps. You don't have to go through GCF. You skip everything except for the 4th step, factor by grouping, because there's how many terms? 4. Okay, generally you can group any way you want. I just like to group my first 2, and then I like to group my second 2. And notice, see how I included that negative with the 30? I've got to put my plus sign up front here. Okay, so first thing I did is I grouped. That's why it's called factor by grouping. Look at your first binomial. What is the GCF of 12x cubed and 2x squared? 2 what?
2x squared.
2x squared. Remember, use the lowest power. 12x cubed divided by 2x squared is what? 6x. And what's 2x squared divided by 2x squared?
1.
Plus 1. Now remember, if we factor by grouping, our binomial in the next term better be what? 6x plus 1. It's got to be the same, otherwise we have something wrong. So now let's look at negative 30 and negative 5. Take out a negative 5. What's negative 30x divided by negative 5? And it's 6x. What's negative 5 divided by negative 5? Plus 1. Are the binomials the same?
Yeah.
Good. So if they are the same, then you've done this correctly. So now that you know those binomials are the same, you want to factor that binomial out because it's in both terms. I'm going to factor it out. So if I take 6x plus 1 away, what's left in the first term? Good, 2x squared. And if I take, if I take 6x plus 1 away from the red binomials, give us a negative 5. So I don't want a double negative, so I'll just make that negative 5. You're done factoring.
Perfect.
Perfect is right, but check and make sure you don't have any GCX. And that's it. You're done. Factor by grouping. Right, I agree. That's why I don't usually teach trinomials factor by grouping, but some people do. But you have to factor by grouping when you have 4 terms. Let's try the next one together. What's the first thing we have to do? Group them. So I'm going to group the first 2, and this is beautiful. It's a plus sign. Plus is always a good thing. We're going to group the second one. So Brandon, help us out. Go to the first grouping. What's the GCF? Brandon's going to answer. Take time. To be the second. You got it. Sam, what's left if you factor out 2b squared?
3b, and then 4. No, hey.
And give me a sign.
Hey.
So say the whole thing.
Hey.
Thanks. Perfect. All right, now put the plus sign down. Anna, second grouping, GCF. We got some classmates that want to help you. Nate? 7. Cody, if we factor 7 out of the second grouping, what's left?
3b minus 6. No, 8.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, how can you tell if you're right? If the binomials are the same, then more than likely you are correct. And then if they're the same, what are you going to do with them?
Factor them out.
Good, we're going to factor them out. So we're factoring out 3b minus 8. So Mackenzie, help me out. Out of the green term, we're going to take 3b minus 8 out. What's left? 3b squared. And Fatima, out of the blue term, we're going to take away 3b minus 8. What's left? 7. Ladies and gentlemen, there's your answers.
Perfect.
Perfect, right? So I want you to practice some of these for homework. Those 2, please write down in your notes. That's going to be your homework. I don't want you to do that.
What do you want me to do?
Should be right there.
We can't even send right now.
No, this goes right in your notes.